In the Golden Age of Piracy, one man sees a fortune worth millions and vanish into legend, terrorizing the seas before disappearing forever. This is the true story of Henry Every and life aboard his infamous ship. In the late 1600s, an ordinary sailor named Henry Every seized a ship through mutiny, declared himself captain, and in just one raid captured the equivalent of $100 million in today's money, becoming the most successful pirate in history. For 2 years, Every terrorized the seas before vanishing completely, his fate unknown to this day. Here's what life was really like aboard the most notorious pirate ship in history. But first, get comfortable. Seriously, adjust those pillows. Pull up that blanket, because where we're going, you're going to want to be cozy. You wake with a start. The wooden beams creak above your hammock as the ship rolls sickeningly to port. Your back aches from weeks of sleeping on rough canvas, and the familiar stench hits you immediately. Unwashed bodies, stale rum, salt-soaked wood, and something worse, the sulphurous smell of gunpowder lingering from yesterday's cannon practice. Unlike your soft bed now, this hammock swings with every motion of the ship. You've learned to sleep with it, this constant rocking that never stops. Not ever. 6 months at anchor has at least given you sea legs. But that's about the only mercy you've had. Up, you worthless dogs. The boatswain's voice cuts through the dim light of dawn, filtering through the hatch. All around you, men groan, curse, and reluctantly slide from their hammocks. They're a rough bunch, scarred, weathered, and desperate, just like you. Their beards are matted with salt, their clothes stiff with it. Nobody's bathed in weeks. You don't even notice the smell anymore, which is probably worse than the smell itself. Wait, what's happening? You hear someone mutter. We moving? Ship's not supposed to leave yet. The deck above vibrates with footsteps. That's odd. No one's supposed to be manning the sails. The ship, the Charles II, has been stuck in the Spanish port for half a year, while the captain, a man named Gibson, waits for paperwork. 6 months of watching the crew's meager wages dwindle to nothing. 6 months of empty promises. Something's going on, says the man beside you. That's not normal. You can feel it, too. The different motion of a ship underway rather than at anchor. The gentle sway has been replaced by purpose, by forward momentum. The Charles II is moving. The hatch above slams open, flooding the cramped quarters with morning light. A face appears, backlit and fierce. All hands on deck now. That's Joseph Dawson, the quartermaster. He's not one for theatrics, which means this is serious. You grab your worn leather vest and scramble for the ladder. On deck, chaos. Men rushing to stations they haven't manned in months. And there by the helm stands first Mate Henry Every, not Captain Gibson. Every. He's not what you'd expect of a pirate, if that's what he now is. Average height, a bit on the heavy side, with what sailors call a jolly complexion. He's about 40 with sharp eyes that miss nothing. He's standing tall, giving orders like he'd been captain all his life. Where's Gibson? Someone shouts. Captain's indisposed. Every replies with a tight smile. Drunk and sick in his quarters last I checked. A murmur runs through the crew. The story comes out in pieces as you work your assigned station, hauling on ropes that haven't been used in ages. Captain Gibson had been roused from his drunken slumber by the motion of the ship. He staggered to the quarter deck to find Henry Every at the wheel. The hell are you doing? Gibson apparently demanded. And Every, this is the part that sends chills through you. Every just looked at him and said, I am the captain of this ship now, and this is my cabin. Therefore you must walk out. I am bound to Madagascar with the design of making my own fortune, and that of all the brave fellows join with me. Just like that, a mutiny executed in a single sentence. But what about Gibson? You ask the sailor next to you, a weathered man named Samuel. Samuel spits over the rail. Every put him and 16 of his loyalists in a small boat, send him back to port. You stare at him. He didn't kill them. Nah, Every's not one for needless blood. But he's not one to be crossed either. It's a lot to process. You've signed on for an honest privateering expedition backed by Spanish money. The goal had been to patrol the Caribbean, maybe capture some French smugglers or buccaneer ships. Good legal work with the promise of prize money. But Gibson had been a terrible captain, and the expedition had gone nowhere, stuck in port while the crew slowly starved on half pay or no pay at all. And now you're apparently part of a mutiny, a pirate crew. Any man who doesn't wish to join every announces from the quarter-deck, his voice carrying across the ship, may leave now with Captain Gibson. The rest prepare to set sail for adventure and fortune beyond your wildest dreams. Nobody moves. Not a single man volunteers to leave. The prospect of actual pay, of actual action, after months of waiting is too tempting. So, just like that, we're pirates, you ask Samuel. He shrugs. Privateers, pirates. The line's thinner than you think. At least now we might actually get paid. And what's Madagascar got that so special? Samuel's smile is gap-toothed, knowing that, my friend, is where the pirates go to build their legends. A fellow Englishman named Thomas too already ventured there, built himself a right reputation, plundering treasures in the Indian Ocean. They say Madagascar is where ordinary men like us can seize fortunes with sword and pistol. That night, as a newly christened pirate ship, now called the Fancy, cuts through waves, Every calls all 80 men to the main deck. The air is cool, stars brilliant above, the lanterns casting long shadows across weathered faces. Men, Every begins. Honest sailing has promised you long oppressive voyages for paltry food and meager wages. I promise you something different. You can feel the energy in the crowd, the collective leaning in. Under my command, we'll live by the pirate code. Our loot will be divided clearly and fairly. No man will go without his share. His eyes sweep across the assembled crew. Unjust captains can be voted out. My own power is checked by our quartermaster, Joseph Dawson. He gestures to Dawson, who nods grimly. Today marks the beginning of our freedom, our fortune, and our legend. The crew erupts in cheers. Even you find yourself shouting, caught up in the moment, in the promise of something better than the half-starved existence you've known. But Samuel beside you remains quiet. What's wrong? You ask when the cheering dies down. Nothing's free in this world, he says quietly. Every has a plan, mark my words. And whatever fortune we find will come at a price. You want to ask what he means, but the crew disperses. Men heading to their stations with a new energy, a new purpose. Over the next days, you learn the rhythms of life aboard a pirate vessel. It's not that different from a naval or merchant ship, except for one crucial detail. There's no flogging, no harsh punishments for minor infractions. Every run's a disciplined ship, but he's not cruel. Men are assigned duties based on their skills, not forced into roles they can't handle. The food is still terrible. Salt beef and hardtack, occasionally supplemented with fish caught from rails. Water turns foul within weeks, taking on a greenish tinge and a smell that makes your stomach turn. Rum becomes a drink of choice, not just for pleasure, but for survival. First stop, the Cape Verde Islands. Samuel tells you one morning, as you're checking the rigging together, we need provisions if we're going to make it to Madagascar. We're just going to sail into port as pirates. Samuel laughs. No, you fool. We'll fly the English flag. Act like any other merchant vessel. Get what we need, then be on our way. But that's not what happens. Not exactly. When the Fancy reaches the tropical waters of Cape Verde, Every has a different plan. Rather than dock in port and risk questions, he sets his sights on 3 English merchant vessels anchored in the harbor. I thought we were going after French ships or pirates, you say to Samuel, as the crew prepares for their first raid. Those are English ships. Pirates don't much care about nationality, Samuel replies, checking his pistol. Gold is gold, no matter who's carrying it. The raid goes surprisingly smoothly. The merchant crews, surprised and outgunned, surrender without much of a fight. Every doesn't allow unnecessary violence. Another surprise. The pirates take salt beef, fish, and other provisions. Every even makes an offer to the impoverished merchant crews. Join him and share in the fortunes to come. 9 sailors accept on the spot. The rest are left with their ships intact, minus some cargo. That was civilized, you say to Samuel afterward. Every's smart. Unnecessary bloodshed brings unwanted attention. Besides, those merchant sailors will spread the word. Henry Every, the gentleman pirate, makes the next raid easier when your prey doesn't expect to be slaughtered. As the fancy continues its journey, you begin to understand the pirate's social structure. It's nothing like the rigid hierarchy of naval vessels. On a pirate ship, major decisions are voted on by the entire crew. The captain has absolute authority only in battle, when quick decisions mean the difference between life and death. Every explains the rules one evening as the crew gathers for the evening meal, such as it is hardtack soaked in broth to make it chewable. Each man signs the articles, he says, and each man has equal say, share and share alike for provisions. When we take a prize, proper shares will be distributed. What's the split? Someone calls out. Captain and quartermaster each get 2 shares. Every answer specialist, like the master bosun, gonna receive a share and a half. Officers get a share and a quarter. All other crew receive 1 share. It's more equitable than any arrangement you've seen on merchant or naval vessels where common sailors might work for years without seeing significant pay. And if we don't like how things are run, another voice asks, then you call for a vote. Every replies simply, no man is above the crew's judgment. Not even me. There's murmuring at this. It's a revolutionary concept in an age where captains rule their vessels like gods. Days turn to weeks as the fancy cruises into the turquoise waters of West Africa. One morning, Every calls you and several others to the quarter deck. His face is serious, his eyes hard. We're approaching what sailors call the Slave Coast. He says without preamble, I know these waters well. You didn't know much about Every before the mutiny, but bits of information have filtered through the crew. After a stint in the Royal Navy, he made his living here on this coast, purchasing people from African chiefs and often stealing those same slave traders as well. Some of you may have moral objections to what happens here. Every continues. Save them. We need supplies, and this coast offers opportunities. What kind of opportunities? You ask. Unable to help yourself? Every's gaze is cold. Profitable ones. Later, Samuel fills in the blanks as you work together repairing a sail. Every was a slaver before this. He says quietly, making sure no one else can hear. Men and women beg for mercy as he shackled them below deck to starve and wallow in their own waste. Months later, he'd haul out the survivors to be sold on plantations in the West Indies. Your stomach turns. And now Samuel shrugs. Now he's a pirate captain, but old habits die hard. The next day, the Fancy approaches a verdant harbor on the Guinea coast. Every raises the English flag, a signal of peaceful trading intentions. Soon, a group of local villagers paddle out in canoes, bringing goods to trade. What happens next will haunt you. The moment the villagers are aboard, Every gives a signal. The pirates reveal hidden weapons. The villagers are robbed of their gold, placed in chains and taken below deck. New cargo to be sold at the next profitable port. This isn't right, you say to Samuel that night, your voice barely a whisper. This isn't what I signed on for. You signed on when you stayed aboard during a mutiny. Samuel reminds you, but I understand not every man has a stomach for slaving, do you? Samuel is quiet for a long time. I've done worse to survive. He finally says, but no, I don't particularly like it. The mood on the ship darkens after that. The human cargo below decks creates a tangible weight, a moral burden that affects even the most hardened sailors. Every seems to sense it. Perhaps that's why when the coast of Africa falls behind, he orders a change in the ship's very structure. We're removing the extraneous decks. He announces, the Fancy will become the fastest vessel on the Atlantic. The crew sets to work, dismantling the extra decks that once held human cargo. Without these decks, the ship becomes lighter, more nimble. Days of hard labor transform a fancy into a sleek predator built for speed and maneuverability, and not a moment too soon. 2 weeks after leaving the African coast, the lookout spots sails on the horizon. 2 Danish privateering ships heavily armed and loaded with cargo. Battle stations. Every roars and the ship erupts into activity. This is the moment of truth. The fancy may be fast, but she's about to face her first real test against armed opponents, not just merchant vessels. Every's face is alive with anticipation as he gives orders from the quarter deck. This is what he was born for. The chase, the fight, the conquest. The fancy surges forward, her newfound speed closing the gap between predator and prey. As you help prepare the cannons, Samuel appears beside you, his expression grim. Ready for your first real pirate battle? You're not really, but you know it anyway. The fancy draws alongside the first Danish ship, and every give the order to fire. The cannons roar to life, belching flame and iron. The violent torrent of cannon fire tears into the Danish vessel's hull and rigging. To your surprise, the Danes quickly surrender, raising a white flag rather than risk further damage. Smart move, Samuel mutters. If they'd fought, every would have shown no mercy. The second Danish ship, seeing its companion surrender, follows suit without firing a shot. The boarding party, led by Every himself, returns with amazing treasures. 40 of gold, chests of fine fabrics, ivory guns, and 50 large casks of brandy. Best of all, well, at least from the crew's perspective, 17 Danish privateers decide to join Every's crew rather than face an uncertain fate. That night, the expanded crew celebrates with captured brandy. The mood is jubilant. The earlier moral qualms about slaving temporarily forgotten in the glow of victory and alcohol. This is just the beginning. Samuel tells you, raising his cup in a toast. Every's got bigger plans. Much bigger. You want to ask what those plans might be, but you're interrupted by a commotion near the mainmast. 2 sailors deep in their cups have drawn knives over some perceived slight. Before anyone else can react, Joseph Dawson, the quartermaster, steps between them. He doesn't draw a weapon. He simply fixes them with a stare cold enough to freeze the Caribbean. The articles, he says, his voice carrying across the suddenly quiet deck. Forbid fighting among the crew. Put those away, or you'll answer the captain. The men hesitate, then slowly sheathe their blades. Dawson nods. Good. Save your fight for our enemies. There's plenty to go around. The incident passes, but reminds you the thin line between order and chaos aboard a pirate vessel. The articles, the pirate code that every man has signed, are what stand between civilization and savagery. It's a more democratic system than any naval vessel, but it requires constant maintenance, constant vigilance. As the fancy continues its journey, now months underway, you spot something that takes your breath away. Pods of breaching whales, their massive bodies arcing gracefully through the air before crashing back into the sea. It's a reminder that despite the human dramas playing out aboard the ship, you're traversing one of the last great wildernesses on Earth. The ship rounds the Cape of Good Hope, leaving the Atlantic for the Indian Ocean. Cool winds carry the fancy forward, and at long last the crew spots a distant friendly harbor on the horizon. Madagascar, Samuel says, pointing to the lush green shores coming into view, home of seafaring colonies of thieves and killers. Pirate dens after months at sea. The sight of land, any land, is enough to make the entire crew cheer. But this isn't just any land. This is a legendary pirate haven where men like you might remake themselves, might seize fortunes beyond imagination. As the fancy approaches the harbor, smaller vessels come out to meet her. Aboard them are pirates of all nationalities, English, Dutch, French, even a few Africans and Indians. They wave and call out greetings, recognizing a kindred spirit in the approaching ship. Every stands at the bow, his face impassive, but his eyes alert, taking in every detail of his new domain. He's brought the crew this far through mutiny and battle across thousands of miles of ocean. But you can't help wondering what comes next. The shores of Madagascar are host to a new world, a world operating by its own rules. For a sailor who began this journey aboard a legitimate privateering vessel, you're about to step into the heart of piracy itself. And somewhere out there, across these waters, lies the greatest prize of all, though you don't know it yet. The treasure that will make Henry Every the most successful pirate in history. The treasure that will put a price on his head across 4 continents. The treasure that will make him a legend. Samuel claps you on the shoulder as the Fancy drops anchor in the sheltered bay. "Welcome to your new life, my friend," he says with a grin. "The real adventure is just beginning." The ground feels wrong beneath your feet. After months at sea, your body has forgotten what stillness feels like. You sway slightly as if the solid earth of Madagascar is still rolling with ocean swells. The sailors around you move with the same awkward gait, sea legs struggling to adapt to land. "Feels like I'm drunk," you mutter to Samuel as you stumble slightly on the beach. "Wait till you actually get drunk," he replies with a grin. "First round's on the captain." And he's not joking. Henry Every has ordered the stolen casks of Danish brandy brought ashore. Within hours, a bonfire roars on the beach. An entire crew is merrily gorging themselves on alcohol they haven't had to water down for once. You take a long pull from your cup, the brandy burning a delicious path down your throat. It's good, really good. The kind nobles drink back in England, not the swill usually found in sailor taverns. The revelry continues deep into the night. Men who were strangers when you joined the Charles II months ago are now bonded through shared danger and the unspoken understanding that comes from choosing this life. You're all outlaws now, pirates. There's no going back. Through the firelight and drunken haze, you spot Captain Every sitting apart from the main group, deep in conversation with several men you don't recognize. Their clothes mark them as fellow captains. The telltale signs of wealth that successful piracy brings. Gold rings, silk scarves, fine pistols tucked into ornate belts. Who's Every talking to? You ask Samuel, nodding toward the group. Samuel squints through the darkness. Other captains? Madagascar has dozens of pirate crews using it as a base. Every's making connections. Smart man. Why is that smart? Samuel looks at you like you're simple, because one ship alone is vulnerable. But a network of pirates sharing information, resources, that's power. That's survival. You watch as Every laughs at something one of the captains says. He seems different on land. More relaxed, more human. It's easy to forget he was a slaver that he still is in some ways. Easy to forget the villagers chained below decks during your voyage here. Sold off to who knows where the moment you made port. The night wears on. Men pass out on the sand or stumble back toward the ship. You're about to do the same when Samuel grabs your arm. "Come on," he says, his words slightly slurred. "I want to show you something." He leads you away from the beach up a winding path that cuts through dense vegetation. The jungle is alive with noise, chirping insects, distant animal calls, the rustle of things moving in the darkness. The clicking sound of unseen creatures follows your every step. "Where are we going?" you ask, suddenly aware of how vulnerable you are, drunk and unarmed in unfamiliar territory. "Pirate Town," Samuel replies. "The real Madagascar." The path opens up to reveal a settlement unlike anything you've seen before. It's a strange hybrid of European architecture and native construction. Wooden buildings with thatched roofs, lanterns hanging from posts. And in the center, an open-air market still operating despite the late hour. Men of all colors and nationalities haggle over goods. You spot English, Dutch, French pirates mingling with local Malagasy people. There are even a few Indians and Arabs in the mix. Women, too. Not just locals, but European women who've somehow found their way to this remote pirate den. "Didn't expect to see women here," you remark. Samuel chuckles. Some are wives or companions. Others run businesses, taverns, boarding houses. Madagascar is one of the few places where people can remake themselves regardless of where they came from. You pass a group of pirates engaged in a heated negotiation with several Malagasy men. One of the locals holds up what appears to be a cow horn, while the pirates offer what looks like gunpowder. What's happening there, you ask? Trading. Samuel explains the locals trade cattle for guns. Been happening for years. The Malagasy get weapons to fight their tribal wars. And we get fresh meat. Seems civilized. Don't let it fool you. There's still plenty of danger. Different pirate crews sometimes clash. Local tribes raid each other. And then there's the biggest threat of all, which is Samuel's face darkens. England's East India Company. The name sends a chill through you despite the tropical heat. Even as a regular sailor, you've heard stories about the company. What began as a simple trading enterprise has grown into something more akin to a nation-state, with its own army and navy. Their ships patrol these waters. Samuel continues. Every year, they carry fortunes back to England. Tea, textiles, spices from Indonesia, China, Persia, and the Mughal Empire in India. You're about to ask more when a commotion erupts from a nearby tavern. Two men burst through the door, locked in combat. One wields a broken bottle, the other a wicked-looking knife. Both are clearly drunk, their movements sloppy but dangerous. The crowd around them doesn't intervene. Instead, they form a circle, some placing bets on outcome. Shouldn't someone stop them, you ask? Samuel shrugs. Not our crew, not our problem. That's the pirate way. The fight ends abruptly when the man with the knife slips in the mud and falls. His opponent pounces, pressing the broken bottle against his throat. For a tense moment, you think you're about to witness a murder. But instead, the victor demands a loser's purse, takes it, and staggers away, leaving his opponent humiliated but alive. See, Samuel says, most pirates would rather take your money than your life. Dead men can't pay debts. The next morning arrives with a special agony only a brandy hangover can deliver. Your head throbs in time with your heartbeat as you make your way back to the Fancy. Most of the crew is in similar shape, moving slowly, speaking little. Every, however, seems fresh and alert as he calls the crew to assemble on deck. Some men are missing, likely still ashore or passed out somewhere in the settlement, while you are all drinking yourselves stupid. Every begins without preamble. I was gathering information. The crew shifts uneasily. No one likes to be reminded of their excesses in the harsh light of morning. The East India Company has 3 ships patrolling these waters. He continues. They've already spotted the Fancy and given chase, but they reported that she sails so hard now that she fears not who follows her. A murmur of pride ripples through the crew. Their work removing the extra decks has paid off. Turn the Fancy into a vessel that can outrun even the company's warships. But speed alone won't make us rich, Every says. I've learned of an opportunity. A big one. Now he has everyone's attention. Hangovers momentarily forgotten. From the mouth of the Red Sea, a pilgrim fleet will soon return from Mecca. Ships laden with treasures and concubines from the Islamic world bound for India. You glance at Samuel, who nods slightly. This is significant. The largest and most prized vessel in this convoy, Every continues, belongs to the Mughal emperor himself, Aurangzeb. It's called the Gang-i-Sawai, the exceeding treasure. The name alone sends a ripple of excitement through the crew. Every lets it build before continuing. Gentlemen, the elegant ruling classes of India adorn themselves with gemstones and gold. This ship will be carrying more wealth than most of you can imagine, enough to make each man here richer than he ever dreamed possible. You can feel it, the shift in energy, the collective hunger that sweeps through the assembled pirates. Even the most hung-over men stand straighter now. We set sail in 3 days, Every announces. Prepare the ship, mend the sails, check the cannons. This is our moment. As the crew disperses, buzzing with excitement, you turn to Samuel. Can we really take on a Mughal treasure ship? Won't it be heavily guarded? Samuel's face is serious. It will, but Every's not stupid. He wouldn't suggest this if he didn't think we could succeed. Over the next few days, the Fancy undergoes a transformation. The crew works with newfound purpose, repairing damage from the long journey, reinforcing weakened timbers, patching sails, and meticulously checking each cannon. You're assigned to work with a gunner, a scarred veteran named Harris, who treats the ship's cannons like beloved children. These beauties, he tells you as you help him polish a cannon barrel, will be the difference between life and death, wealth and poverty. How many do we have? You ask. 46 guns. Harris replies with pride. More than enough to deal with merchant vessels. Even armed ones. You're not entirely convinced, but keep your doubts to yourself. During these preparations, the crew continues to explore the island. Some men venture into the clicking jungles where they encounter Malagasy natives who regard the pirates with cautious curiosity. You're part of a small group that travels inland one day, ostensibly to hunt for fresh meat, but really to escape the constant work aboard ship. The jungle is unlike anything you've experienced. Dense, humid, alive with sounds and smells that have no equivalent in England. Your group stumbles upon a Malagasy village where, after some initially tense moments, the locals welcome you through a mixture of broken English gestures and improvised sign language. You establish a primitive form of communication. The village chief, a dignified man with intricate scars decorating his arms, seems particularly interested in your weapons. He points to your pistol, then mimics shooting. "I think he wants a trade," says one of your companions, a former merchant sailor named Roberts. "For what?" you ask. The answer comes when the chief gestures to a pen containing several cattle. The message is clear. Guns for beef. Roberts considers this, then nods. Tell Every this could be useful. Fresh meat before a long voyage is worth its weight in gold. When you return to the Fancy and report the encounter, Every immediately grasps the opportunity. The next day, he personally leads a delegation back to the village, bringing several old muskets and powder. He returns with 5 cattle, which are promptly slaughtered and prepared for the journey ahead. "Smart move," Samuel comments as you both watch the meat being salted and stored. "Meat will keep us strong. We'll need our strength for what's coming." The morning of departure arrives with perfect sailing conditions, clear skies and a steady wind. The crew, now rested and provisioned, works with practiced efficiency to prepare the Fancy for sea. As the anchor comes up and the sails unfurl to catch the wind, you feel a strange mixture of excitement and dread. Madagascar, for all its wildness, had begun to feel like a haven. Ahead lies uncertainty, danger, and possibly unimaginable wealth. Every stands at the helm, his face set with determination as the Fancy glides out of the harbor. Other pirate vessels dip their flags and salute as you pass, a sign of respect for a captain who's quickly building a fearsome reputation. Once clear of the bay, Every sets a course northwest toward the Horn of Africa. The crew falls into the familiar rhythm of life at sea. Watches change, meals are served, maintenance continues. But there's a different energy now. A sense of purpose that wasn't present during the journey from Europe. What do you know about this Mughal emperor? You ask Samuel one evening as you both lean against the rail, watching the sunset paint the waves in gold and crimson. Aurangzeb, Samuel shakes his head, only that he's fabulously wealthy and powerful. They say his empire is larger than all of Europe combined, and we're going to steal from him. Doesn't sound wise. Samuel turns to look at you, his face serious in the fading light. Nothing about this life is wise, lad, but that's why the rewards are so great. The greater the risk, the greater the prize. Weeks pass as the Fancy round the Horn of Africa and enters the Red Sea. The heat becomes oppressive, a dry, relentless baking that's different from the humid warmth of Madagascar. Men work shirtless, their skin turning brick red despite years of exposure to the sun. Every orders gun drills daily now. Under Harris's watchful eye, the gun crews practice loading, aiming, and firing with increasingly impressive speed. Without actual gunpowder, a precious resource saved for real battles, they go through the motions, developing the muscle memory that can mean the difference between victory and disaster. 7 volleys in 3 minutes. Harris announces proudly after one particularly successful drill. Keep that up, and nothing on these waters can stand against us. But the Mughal treasure fleet isn't the only concern. The waters around the Horn of Africa are patrolled not just by the East India Company, but by ships from various nations, all potential threats to a vessel flying no recognized flag. The tension reaches its peak when just days after entering the Red Sea, the lookout spots 3 ships on the horizon flying company colors. Battle stations every orders, his voice carrying across the deck. Your heart hammers in your chest as you run to your assigned gun. Through gaps in the gun ports, you can see the company vessels growing larger as they approach. Their gun ports open, ready for action. They're closing fast. Harris mutters beside you. Steady now, but every has other plans. Instead of turning to fight, he orders more sail. The Fancy leaps forward like a living thing, catching a favorable wind and pulling away from pursuit. For hours, the chase continues. The company ships are well built and fast, but the Fancy, stripped down and sleek, gradually increases the distance between them. By nightfall, the pursuers are merely smudges on the horizon. By morning, they're gone entirely. See, Samuel says with a grin, as you both watch the empty horizon behind you. Fastest ship on the ocean. Every maintains a punishing pace for days, driving the Fancy deeper into the Red Sea. The coastline to the west changes, becoming more barren, more alien. This is a part of the world few European sailors ever see. Finally, the ship reaches a volcanic island that every identifies as Param, positioned at a strategic choke point. Here, he announces, the Fancy will wait for the Mughal treasure fleet to pass. They must come this way. He explains to the assembled crew, the convoy will return from Mecca through these waters. We'll let them pass, then fall upon them from behind. It's a solid plan, but as the Fancy drops anchor in the lee of the island, you notice Samuel looking troubled. What's wrong? You ask the 2 of you help secure the sails. Nothing, he says, then sighs. Just thinking about what's ahead. Taking merchant ships is one thing. Taking on a Mughal treasure fleet is something else entirely. Having second thoughts? Samuel laughs, but there's little humor in it. Too late for that, isn't it? We're all in this together now. The waiting begins. Days pass with little to do except maintain the ship and scan the horizon for sails. The volcanic island offers little diversion, just black rock and stunted vegetation baking under the merciless sun. Some men grow restless. Arguments break out over trivial matters. Every recognizing the danger of idle hands keeps the crew busy with endless drills and tasks. Then, a week into the wait, the lookout spot sails to the north. Not the expected Mughal fleet, but something else. As the vessels draw closer, a shock runs through the crew. Pirates. 5 ships approaching in loose formation. Are they friendly? You ask Samuel as every orders the crew to battle readiness just in case. We'll find out soon enough. Every orders a flag raised. Not the English colors used to fool merchant vessels, but a simple white flag, a request for parley. The lead ship among the newcomers responds in kind. An hour later, their captain comes aboard the Fancy in a small boat. You're on deck when he arrives, and the sight makes your breath catch. This is a pirate from storybooks. Tall, flamboyantly dressed with pistols crossed over his chest and a curved sword at his hip. Who's that? You whisper to a nearby sailor. The man looks at you in disbelief. You don't know. That's Thomas Tew himself, the legend. Every receives Tew with formal courtesy, and the 2 captains disappear into the great cabin for private discussions. The crew waits anxiously, wondering what this means for their plans. Hours later, Every emerges, his face impossible to read. He calls the crew together. Gentlemen, he begins. I've conferred with Captain Tew of the ship Amity and the other captains in his fleet. It seems we're not the only ones with designs on the Mughal treasure. A murmur runs through the assembled men. But rather than compete, every continues, we've agreed to join forces. Combined, we'll have 6 ships and over 400 men. The crew erupts in cheers. With numbers like that, the treasure fleet doesn't stand a chance. And every adds once the noise dies down the other captains have agreed that I will serve as admiral of our combined fleet. This brings another round of cheers. It's a tremendous honor and recognition of Every's growing reputation. To be placed in command above even Thomas II, a pirate whose exploits are legendary, is no small thing. That evening, a council is held aboard the Fancy. The captains of all 6 ships gathered plan their attack. From your position on deck, you can hear their voices rising and falling, occasionally punctuated by laughter or a fist pounding on the table for emphasis. This is big. Samuel says, joining you at the rail. Bigger than anything I've seen in 15 years at sea. Good big or bad big, you ask? Samuel considers this. Hard to say. More ships means more firepower, but also means more ways things can go wrong. More captains means more egos, but Every's in charge. For now, pirates are fickle creatures. Loyalty lasts only as long as the success does. The council concludes late in the night. The next morning, Every addresses the crew again. The plan is set, he announces. We form a blockade across the strait. When the Mughal fleet appears, we attack in coordinated waves. No ship escapes. No treasure is missed. It's a simple strategy, but effective. With 6 ships, they can cover the entire possible width of the strait. And when do we expect them? Someone calls out. Every smile is predatory. Any day now. Keep your powder dry and your eyes sharp. The waiting resumes. But with 5 additional ships anchored nearby, the mood is different. There's a festive atmosphere as boats travel between vessels. Crews mingle and stories are exchanged. Pirates who've raided across different oceans share techniques, boast of conquests, and form new alliances. You find yourself in a boat headed for 2's ship one afternoon. Part of a group sent to trade some of your excess gunpowder for their rum. The Amity is smaller than the Fancy, but no less formidable. As you climb aboard, you're struck by the different feel of the vessel. It's run with a looser discipline than Every ship, the men more boisterous, the atmosphere more chaotic. Tua himself appears on deck as your transaction concludes. Up close, he's even more impressive. A natural commander whose mere presence draws all eyes. So you're Every's men, he says, looking your group over. He runs a tight ship, I hear. Tight enough, replies your group's leader, a seasoned pirate named Walsh. Tua nods approvingly. Good. We'll need discipline for what's ahead. The Mogos won't surrender their treasure without a fight. As your group prepares to return to the Fancy, Tua adds casually, tell your captain the wind's changing. I can smell it. The fleet will come soon. Sure enough, that night the wind shifts, blowing steadily from the north. Every orders a Fancy to battle readiness. No one sleeps much. Every man too keyed up to aware of what might appear with the dawn. Morning reveals an empty horizon, but Every doesn't relax to watch. By midday, still nothing. By evening, frustration begins to set in. Was Tua wrong? Has the fleet taken another route? Then, as the sun sets and darkness begins to fall, the lookout's cry rings out. Sails northern horizon. Many sails. Every is on the quarter deck in an instant, telescope trained on the distant shapes. His expression shifts from concentration to satisfaction. Signal the fleet, he orders. The Mogul convoy has arrived. The Fancy's lanterns flash messages to the other pirate ships. In response, dim lights flicker across the water as the pirates prepare to spring their trap. But as full darkness descends, something unexpected happens. The lights of the Mogul fleet, which have been growing closer, begin to fade. They're changing course using the cover of night to slip past the pirate blockade. Damnation, Every curses. They've spotted us. Orders fly across the deck. Anchors are raised, sails unfurled. The pirates give chase, but in the darkness, with an enemy executing evasive maneuvers, it's nearly impossible to maintain contact. By dawn, the bulk of the Mogul convoy has vanished, escaping into the open ocean. But not all of them. The lookout spots 2 stragglers, massive ships that have fallen behind the main fleet. The Faf Muhammad and the Gang-i-Sawai. Every announces after studying them through his telescope. The escort and the treasure ship itself. They haven't escaped yet. A new chase begins. The pirate fleet, led by the Fancy, surges in pursuit of the two Mughal vessels. The sun climbs higher, beating down on men already exhausted from a sleepless night. On the deck of the Amity, Thomas too raises the black flag, a declaration of piratical intent and a promise of no quarter. His ship pulls ahead of the others, closing rapidly on the Faf Muhammad. From your position on the Fancy, you watch as the Amity opens fire. The Faf Muhammad returns fire, and for a brief, terrible moment, it seems like Two's gambit has failed. Then tragedy strikes. A cannonball from the Mogul ship tears across Two's abdomen. Even from a distance, you can see the horrific wound. See Two's innards spill into his own hands as he collapses to the deck. "My God," you whisper, while rising in your throat. The Amity falls back in disarray, its captain mortally wounded. The Faf Muhammad seizes the opportunity to capture some of Two's crew before continuing its flight. Every watching this unfold sets his jaw. "Full sail," he orders. "We're taking them both." The Fancy surges forward, leaving the other pirate ships behind. With her superior speed, she closes a gap on the wounded Mughal vessels hour by hour. Night falls again, but the chase continues. No one sleeps. Every man knows what's at stake. When dawn breaks, the Fancy has closed to within striking distance of the Faf Muhammad. Every gives the order to open fire, and the ship's guns roar to life. After some resistance, the Faf Muhammad surrenders. Every frees its prisoners, including Two's captured men, and plunders its treasure. 40,000 pounds worth of goods are transferred to the Fancy. But the true prize, the Gang-i-Sawai, still sails ahead. Do we continue the chase? Asks Dawson, the quartermaster. Every's response is immediate. Of course, we didn't come all this way for the appetizer. So, the pursuit continues. The Fancy, now heavily laden with the Faf Muhammad's treasure, still manages to close the gap on the Gang-i-Sawai. It takes days. The Mogul ship fighting for every mile. But finally the moment of truth arrives as the Fancy pulls within range. You get your first clear look at the Gang-i-Sawai. It's enormous, far larger than the Fancy. Through a borrowed telescope, you count at least 62 guns. The deck swarms with hundreds of armed men. "We're outnumbered 5-1, you say to Samuel, unable to keep the fear from your voice. Samuel nods grimly. "And they have twice our firepower." "Then why are we doing this?" "It's suicide." Before Samuel can answer, Every gives the order to prepare for battle. The Fancy's gun ports open. Cannons run out. Every man takes his station, fully aware of the odds against them. You look at every standing tall on the quarter deck. His face shows no fear, no doubt, only determination. He can't resist. Samuel says, "Following your gaze." No true pirate could. That ship represents everything we've ever dreamed of. Enough wealth to vanish forever, to live like kings. As the Fancy moves into firing position, the tension aboard ship is thick enough to cut with knife. This is the moment every pirate aboard has been sailing toward since the mutiny all those months ago. Every raises his hand, ready to give the order that will commit you all to battle against overwhelming odds. The fate of every man aboard hangs on what happens in the next few minutes. Fire. Every shouts and the world explodes into chaos. The Fancy's broadside tears through the air and you hold your breath, waiting to see the impact. The Gang-i-Sawai absorbs a volley, its massive hull shuddering but holding. Immediately, the Mughal ship prepares to return fire, gun ports opening along its side like a row of hungry mouths. Brace! Harris shouts beside you, and you grip the nearest support preparing for the devastating reply. But it never comes. Instead, a tremendous explosion rocks the Gang-i-Sawai. One of their cannons has malfunctioned catastrophically, erupting in a shower of deadly metal and flame. Even from the Fancy, you can see the confusion spreading across the enemy deck as mangled gunners are pulled from the flames. That's fortune smiling on us lads. Every bellows from the quarter deck. Reload and fire at will. The gun crews work with frenzy efficiency, ramming powder and shot down smoking barrels. The Fancy's cannons roar again, and this time a fateful cannonball strikes the main mast of the Gang-i-Sawai. The giant wooden pillar cracks, and the rigging begins to topple, splintering as it comes down. My God, Samuel breathes beside you. We might actually win this. The Mughal ship, its sailing power crippled and gun deck in chaos, begins to lose momentum. The Fancy pulls closer. Close enough now to see individual faces. On the enemy deck, you can make out elaborate uniforms, turbans, the glint of fine weapons. These aren't simple sailors. They're elite guards protecting their emperor's treasure. Prepare to board every shouts and grappling hooks appear in the hands of the most battle-ready pirates. Your heart hammers against your ribs. You've never boarded an enemy vessel before, never engaged in the kind of hand-to-hand combat that's about to erupt. The pistol in your belt and the short sword at your side suddenly feel inadequate against the hundreds of defenders waiting on the Gang-i-Sawai. Stay close to me, Samuel tells you, checking his own weapons. Do exactly as I do, and we might live through this. The ships draw alongside each other. The Fancy now dwarfed by its massive opponent. Grappling hooks sail through the air, biting into the Mughal ship's rail, pulling the vessels together with creaking reluctance. Board. Every shouts and the pirates surge forward, climbing across the narrow gap between ships, swarming up the sides of the Gang-i-Sawai like ants on sugar. You follow Samuel, scrambling over the rail and landing on the enemy deck in a crouch. Immediately, the world dissolves into chaos. The air fills with desperate shouts in unfamiliar languages. The sharp crack of pistols, the clash of steel on steel. Through plumes of gun smoke, you see your fellow pirates charging to the Mughal defenders. Despite being outnumbered, the pirates fight with the ferocity of men who know defeat means death. Every himself is in the thick of it, pistol in one hand, sword in the other, cutting a path toward the captain's quarters. A defender rushes at you, curved sword raised high. Time seems to slow. You've never killed a man before, never really thought about what it would mean to do so, but your body reacts before your mind can catch up. You sidestep, bringing your own blade up in a desperate parry. The clash sends shock waves up your arm. Samuel appears beside you, driving his sword into your attacker's side. The man falls with a cry that will haunt your dreams for years to come. Keep moving, Samuel shouts, already engaging another defender. Standing still gets you killed. The battle rages for what feels like hours. The Mughal defenders fight bravely at first, but as more pirates swarm aboard from the Fancy and the other pirate ships that have finally caught up, their resistance begins to crumble. A pivotal moment comes when a group of pirates breaks through to what appears to be the Mughal captain's position. From your place near the main mast, you can't see exactly what happens, but a ripple of confusion passes through the defenders. Orders stop coming. Organization dissolves into individual skirmishes. The captains abandon his post. Someone shouts. The cowards run below. Whether true or not, the effect is immediate. The Mughal defenders, already reeling from the loss of their main mast and explosion on their gun deck, begin to falter. Some throw down their weapons. Others retreat to defensive positions around hatches and doorways. After hours of bloody battle, an eerie silence falls over the Gang-i-Sawai. The fighting hasn't completely stopped. There are still pockets of resistance, but the outcome is no longer in doubt. The pirates have taken the upper decks. Every assembles his officers near the shattered remnants of the main mast. His clothes are spattered with blood, some of it his own from a shallow cut across his cheek. But his eyes are bright with triumph. Secure the prisoners, he orders, then find the treasure. Every inch of this ship is to be searched. These Mughals are clever. They'll have hidden the best pieces. You find yourself assigned to a search party led by Dawson, the quartermaster. As you descend below decks, the true horror of the battle becomes apparent. Bodies litter the passageways. Defenders mostly, but some pirates, 2. The air is thick with the metallic scent of blood and the acrid smell of gunpowder. The lower decks of the Gang-i-Sawai reveal the ship's dual purpose. Part war vessel, part luxury transport. You pass cabins fitted with silk hangings and ornate furniture, now shattered and bloodstained. In one room, a golden hookah pipe lies overturned, still releasing wisps of fragrant smoke. This isn't what we're looking for. Dawson growls, pushing deeper into the ship. Your group reaches a heavy door with elaborate lock mechanisms. 2 pirates step forward with axes, breaking through the wood with practiced efficiency. Inside is a sight that steals your breath. Chests and crates stacked floor to ceiling. Dawson pries open the nearest chest, and the room fills with a golden glow. Inside, coins and jewelry glitter in the lantern light. Each piece worth more than most sailors would see in a lifetime. By all that's holy, someone whispers. Dawson's face splits in a grim smile. And this is just the beginning, lads, as word spreads. More pirates converge on the treasure hold. Chests are broken open, their contents cataloged with surprising discipline. Every appears his expression carefully neutral as he surveys the growing pile of wealth. No man takes so much as a coin until all is counted and divided. He declares anyone caught stealing will answer to me personally. No one challenges this. Every's leadership has brought them to the greatest prize in pirate history. His authority now is absolute. The search continues over the next several hours, revealing hidden compartments throughout the ship. The wealth you uncover is staggering. Gold coins by the thousand, silver plate, jeweled ornaments, fine silks, ivory, and spices worth fortunes in European markets. But the treasure isn't the only discovery. As you push deeper into the vessel, your search party encounters a locked cabin from which muffled sounds emerge. Dawson hesitates before ordering it opened. Inside, a group of women huddle together, their fine clothes and jewelry, marking them as high-status passengers. Their faces are masks of terror as the pirates enter. Female pilgrims, Dawson says quietly, returning from Mecca. You notice the women's attire includes hijabs. These are Muslim women of noble birth, possibly related to the Mughal court itself. Every to be told immediately, Dawson orders, posting guards at the door. No one enters until he decides what's to be done. As you return to the main deck to report the discovery, you pass other groups of pirates leading captured sailors to central collection points. Some pirates are already employing brutal methods to extract information about additional treasure, burning captives with slow matches, applying thumb screws, or simply beating them until they talk. You try not to look, try not to hear the screams, but they follow you up to the deck where the evening sun casts long shadows across the blood-stained planks. Every receives the news about the female pilgrims with an unreadable expression. He disappears below decks for nearly an hour before returning. They're not to be harmed is all he says on the matter, but you notice he doesn't meet anyone's eyes when he says it. Night falls on the captured Gang-i-Sawai. Lanterns and torches cast wavering light across the scene as pirates continue the methodical process of transferring treasure to the Fancy and the other pirate vessels that have now caught up. The work is exhausting but exhilarating. Every chest, every bag contains wealth beyond imagination. You're helping load a crate of silver onto a boat for transfer when you notice Samuel standing at the rail staring out at the black ocean. "We did it," you say, joining him. "We actually did it." Samuel doesn't immediately respond. When he does, his voice is unnaturally flat. "We did. What's wrong? We're rich. Richer than we ever dreamed possible." Samuel turns to look at you, his face half illuminated by a nearby torch. "You ever wonder about the cost? Not in blood. That's the price of our trade. But the other cost, you don't understand, and your confusion must show. The things happening below decks right now." Samuel continues, "The things Every's turning a blind eye to. That's the real price we're paying." Before you can ask what he means, a commotion erupts nearby. 2 pirates are arguing over a jeweled dagger, each claiming it as personal loot rather than part of communal treasure. Dawson appears as if from nowhere, separating the men with practice authority. Enough. All valuable items go into the common stock for fair division. You know the articles. The men grumble, but surrender the dagger. Dawson's role as quartermaster includes maintaining discipline and ensuring fair treatment of the crew, particularly important now with temptation all around. The work continues through the night and into the next day. By midday, it becomes clear that the fancy alone cannot carry all the plundered wealth. Every orders some of the treasure distributed to the other pirate ships, but keeps the lion's share for his own crew. On the third day after the capture, every makes a fateful decision. With the treasure secured and the Gang-i-Sawai stripped of everything valuable, he orders the prisoners released and the Mughal ship set adrift. "We're not taking prisoners," you ask Samuel as you watch the battered vessel slowly recede into the distance. "Too many mouths to feed. Too many potential mutineers." Samuel replies, "Better for us if they make it back to port and spread the word of what happened here. Won't that bring the Mughal Navy down on us?" Samuel's laugh is hollow. By the time they organize a response, we'll be halfway around the world. Besides, what navy can hunt a ship that flies no flag, that calls no nation home? He's right. You realize the pirate's greatest advantage is mobility, the ability to strike and vanish, to be nowhere and everywhere. Later that day, Every assembles the crew on the deck of the Fancy, now riding low in the water from the weight of its plundered cargo. "Gentlemen," he begins, "what we have accomplished here will be remembered for generations. The Gang-i-Sawai carried perhaps the most valuable treasure ever stolen by pirates. Each of you has earned your place in history." A cheer goes up, quickly silenced by Every's raised hand. "According to our articles, the treasure will be divided as follows. As captain, I take 2 shares. Quartermaster Dawson also receives 2 shares. Our specialists, the master, boatswain, and gunner, each receive a share and a half. Other officers get a share and a quarter. All remaining crew receive 1 equal share." There's murmuring at this. Even a single share will amount to more than a lifetime of honest sailors' wages. Division will begin tomorrow. Every continues. Until then, extra rum ration for all. This brings the loudest cheer yet. The crew disperses, buzzing with excitement, already planning how they'll spend their newfound wealth. You find yourself by the rail again, trying to comprehend how your life has changed. 6 months ago, you were an ordinary sailor on a legitimate privateering expedition. Now you're a pirate who's participated in the most successful raid in history. Samuel joins you, 2 cups of rum in hand. He passes 1 to you. "To fortune," he says, raising his cup. "To fortune," you echo, drinking deep. The rum burns pleasantly going down, warming you from the inside. The night is clear, stars winking above like distant jewels. What will you do with your share? You ask. Samuel considers this, swirling the rum in his cup. By a small plot of land somewhere quiet, maybe England, maybe the colonies, somewhere with no memory of Samuel the pirate. You'd go back to farming after this? There are worse fates, he says. What about you? The question catches you off guard. You haven't really thought beyond surviving the raid. I don't know. Enjoy it, I suppose. Samuel's expression turns serious. Word of advice, don't flash your wealth. That's how pirates get caught. Be smart. Be patient. Make your fortune last. The next day, the formal division of treasure begins. It's a meticulous process overseen by Every and Dawson. Each item of value is assessed, cataloged, and assigned to the common stock. Some personal effects, clothing, books, items of religious significance are set aside as not worth counting. But the wealth is beyond anything you could have imagined. Chests of shining emeralds, Arabian gold coins by the thousand, ivory tusks, rolls of the finest silk. When the final tally is announced, it's almost incomprehensible. Over a lifetime of sailors' wages for each man, Every takes his massive share without ceremony. Quartermaster Dawson divides the remainder with mathematical precision, calling each man forward to receive his portion. When your name is called, You step up to the makeshift counting table. Dawson looks you in the eye as he pushes a heavy leather sack toward you. Use it wisely is all he says before calling the next name. Back at your berth, you open the sack in private. Gold and silver pieces spill onto your bunk, along with several small gems and a rolled parchment detailing your exact share. The total is enough to buy a modest estate to live comfortably for decades without working another day. You're still staring at the wealth when Samuel finds you. Put that away. He hisses, glancing around to ensure no one else is watching. Are you trying to get your throat cut? Hastily, you scoop the treasure back into its sack, concealing it beneath your hammock. Sorry, it's just I know. Samuel sighs, his irritation fading. Overwhelming, isn't it? Just be careful. Not every man aboard has your honest nature. Over the next few days, the mood aboard the Fancy shifts. The shared purpose that united the crew during the raid begins to fracture, replaced by individual concerns. Men who spent lives in desperate poverty now possess more wealth than they know how to manage. Some drink heavily, celebrating their good fortune. Others become paranoid, guarding their shares with obsessive vigilance. Every sensing the changing atmosphere announces the ship's next destination, a port where the crew can enjoy their newfound riches in safety. We've taken the greatest prize any pirate could hope for, he declares from the quarter deck. Now we must ensure we live to enjoy it. We sail for Nassau. Nassau, a quiet backwater in the Bahamas, known for a corrupt governor and lack of naval presence. A perfect haven for pirates flush with wealth and seeking to disappear. The journey is long, nearly 7 months of sailing across the Indian Ocean, around Africa and across the Atlantic. The crew's initial euphoria fades, replaced by the mundane reality of life at sea. There are still watches to stand, sails to trim, decks to scrub. Along the way, the Fancy makes several stops. Near Madagascar, the ship takes on 90 slaves, not for treasure this time, but as an investment to be sold later. It's a grim reminder that despite the democratic aspects of pirate life, many of these men still view human beings as commodity. Later, the ship pauses to hunt sea turtles, providing a welcome change from the monotonous diet of salt meat and hardtack. The massive creatures are hauled aboard, kept alive until needed, then butchered for their meat and eggs. During these long months, you notice changes in Samuel. He grows quieter, more withdrawn. Sometimes you catch him staring at the horizon with an unreadable expression. Are you unwell? You ask him one evening as you both stand the night watch. No, he says after a long pause. Just thinking about the future, about choices. What choices? The ones we make, the ones we live with. He turns to look at you directly. The Gang-i-Sawai. You know what happened below decks after we took it, don't you? You shake your head slowly. Every watch as his pirates burned and tortured Indian sailors until they confess the location of all the treasure, Samuel says, his voice flat. The female pilgrims they were forced upon repeatedly for days. Several women slit their own throats or drowned themselves rather than endure it. Horror washes over you. You've been busy with the treasure, deliberately avoiding the darker corners of the captured ship, but deep down you'd known or suspected. Every could have stopped it, Samuel continues. He chose not to, and we, all of us, were part of it now. That blood is on our hands, too. You have no answer for this. The weight of it presses down, making the leather sack of treasure hidden in your berth feel suddenly tainted. When we reach Nassau, Samuel says, I'm leaving, taking my share, and disappearing. I suggest you do the same. 7 months after the Gang-i-Sawai raid, the Fancy finally sails into quiet backwater bay of Nassau. The town is little more than a collection of weathered buildings clustered around a natural harbor. But to pirates laden with illegal treasure, it's paradise. Every poses as a slave trader, an identity that raises few questions in the colonies. He bribes a governor with chests of gold and the Fancy itself in exchange for safe hiding. The crew disperses into the decrepit taverns of Nassau, exchanging coins for rum and companionship after months at sea. You follow Samuel's lead, keeping a low profile, spending modestly and making plans for a quiet escape. But one evening, as you share a bottle in a corner of Nassau's dingiest tavern, a stranger enters. He moves differently than the usual clientele, more purposeful, more observant. In his hand is a rolled parchment that he nails to the tavern wall before departing. Curiosity draws a crowd to the document. You and Samuel join them, pushing forward to read the official proclamation from the Lords Justices of England. We do hereby charge and command all His Majesty's admirals, captains, and other officers at sea to seize and take Henry Every, and such as are with him on the ship, to be punished as pirates upon the high seas. An enormous bounty has been set on Every's head. The pirate captain who successfully eluded the East India Company's ships is now the most wanted man in the world. It's starting, Samuel murmurs. Time to disappear. That night, the crew of the Fancy begins to fracture completely. Some stay in Nassau, believing distance has made them safe. Most head for corrupt parts of the 13 colonies, where questions are few and bribes effective. Every himself, you learn, has purchased a small ship and plans to return to sea with a handful of trusted men. What about you? You ask Samuel, as dawn breaks on what will likely be your last day together. Ireland, he says simply. Green fields and anonymity. You haven't decided yet, torn between returning to England and the promise of the colonies. But there's something else bothering you, a question you need answered. Do you think it was worth it? Everything we did, the people who suffered, was it worth this? You gesture to the small chest containing your share of the treasure. Samuel doesn't answer immediately. He stares out at the harbor, where the sun is just beginning to gild the water. Ask me in 20 years. He finally says, if I'm alive and free, maybe I'll have an answer then. Later that day, you say your goodbyes. Samuel boards a merchant vessel bound for Europe, his wealth concealed in nondescript baggage, his identity shed like an old coat. As for Captain Henry Every, his fate becomes a mystery that will baffle authorities for years to come. Some say he squandered his wealth. Others claim he eloped with a Mughal princess. Still others insist he governs a free colony of pirates back on Madagascar. The truth, like the man himself, vanishes into the mists of history, taking the greatest pirate treasure ever stolen with him. You find yourself in a small tavern on the outskirts of Philadelphia, 3 months after parting ways with Samuel. Your gold is carefully hidden, some sewn into the lining of your clothes, the rest buried beneath the floorboards of the rented room above the tavern. You've been careful, spending only what's necessary, keeping your head down. The tavern door swings open, letting in a gust of autumn air and a merchant sailor whose face is vaguely familiar. You tense hand, instinctively moving toward the knife in your boot. But the sailor takes no notice of you, settling instead at the bar with his back turned. The serving girl brings you another ale, and you thank her with a nod. She's pretty with chestnut hair and a quick smile. In another life, a normal life, you might have courted her, but normal isn't possible anymore. Not with the weight of the Gang-i-Sawai hanging around your neck. You hear about those pirates they caught? A voice carries from a nearby table. The ones who robbed that Indian ship. Your blood turns to ice. Carefully you take a sip of ale, keeping your expression neutral while straining to hear more. I, his companion replies, brought to London in chains. I heard. Execution dock awaits him. Every wasn't among them, though. No, that devil's still free. £1,000 bounty on his head. £1,000. The sum is staggering, enough to tempt even a wealthy man. You finish your ale and slip out of the tavern, heart hammering against your ribs. In your room, you pull out the latest newspaper you've managed to acquire, scanning again for any mention of the Fancy's crew. There it is, a small article detailing the arrest of Joseph Dawson, the quartermaster, and a handful of other crew members who had returned to Britain. They're to be tried publicly, an example to all who might consider piracy. You sit heavily on your narrow bed, Dawson in court, the man who had stood beside every through the mutiny, who had divided the greatest pirate treasure in history with mathematical precision, now faces a gallows, and with him secrets that could implicate every man who sailed on the Fancy. Sleep eludes you that night. You stare at the ceiling, mind racing with possibilities. Perhaps it's time to move again, to find somewhere even more remote. The colonies are vast with plenty of places a man could disappear. Or perhaps you should follow Samuel's path. Find a ship bound for Europe. Then make your way to the green hills of Ireland or the Scottish Highlands. The next morning brings news that settles a question. A broad sheet tacked to the tavern wall announces the execution date for the pirate Dawson and his villainous companions. The trial is already over. Swift justice for men who dared attack the Mughal Empire's prize ship. But it's not this news that chills you. It's the smaller notice beneath detailing the diplomatic crisis that has erupted between England and the Mughal Empire. Emperor Aurangzeb, it seems, was not content to let the matter rest with the capture of a few pirates. Upon learning of the attack, the notice reads, the Mughal Emperor sent his army to occupy 5 key ports for English trade in India: Bombay, Surat, Broach, Agra, and Ahmedabad, effectively cutting off English trade until Henry Every is caught and executed for his crimes. The implications are staggering. One pirate raid has paralyzed trade between nations, threatening the economic foundation of the growing British Empire. No wonder the bounty on Every's head is so high. No wonder the authorities are hunting down every last member of his crew. You make your decision before finishing your breakfast. By nightfall, you've paid for passage on a merchant vessel bound for Charleston. The first step in putting as much distance as possible between yourself and the spreading news of the fancy's exploits on board the merchant ship. You keep to yourself posing as a failed shopkeeper seeking a fresh start. It's a common enough story in the colonies, and no one questions it too deeply. But 2 days into the voyage, you notice a passenger watching you with unnerving intensity. A lean, hard-faced man with the bearing of someone accustomed to violence. You avoid him as best you can, but on the 3rd night, he corners you on the deck as you take some air before retiring. I know what you are, he says without preamble. Your hand moves to your knife, but he holds up a placating palm. Easy, friend. I'm not here to turn you in. You've mistaken me for someone else, you reply, voice steady, despite your racing heart. He smiles thinly. Have I? A young man with obvious sea experience who flinches at any mention of India or pirates. Who carries himself like he's constantly watching for danger. Who pays for his passage in brand new Spanish silver. Your mistake hits you like a physical blow. The Spanish silver, part of the Gang-i-Sawai treasure. You should have traded it for older coins. Should have been more careful. What do you want? You ask, hand still on your knife. Information? The man leans against the rail. I represent certain interests in London who are most eager to locate Captain Every. I don't know where he is. Perhaps not specifically, but you might know his tendencies, his plans, the places he spoke of fondly. You say nothing mind-racing. Is this a trap? An attempt to trick you into self-incrimination? The man sighs. Let me be clear. My employers don't care about you or the rest of the crew. They want Every. Provide useful information, and I'm authorized to offer you not just immunity, but a reward. And if I have nothing to offer, his smile doesn't reach his eyes. Then we part ways in Charleston, and I continue my search elsewhere. But consider this. The noose is tightening. Sooner or later, Every will be found. Better to be on the right side of history when that happens. You promise to think about it. A meaningless assurance to end the conversation. That night you lie awake in your narrow berth, turning over your options. You could tell him about Nassau, about Every's plan to purchase a small ship, but that information is months old and likely useless. You could invent something, but lies have a way of unraveling. In the end, you decide on silence. When the ship docks in Charleston, you disembark early and lose yourself in the busy port, leaving the mysterious agent to his fruitless search. For weeks, you move from town to town along the colonial coast, never staying more than a few days in any place. News travels slowly in the colonies, but it travels. In a Philadelphia print shop, you read about the East India Company filing an insurance claim for $350,000 to cover the losses from the Gang-i-Sawai raid. In a Boston tavern, you overhear sailors discussing the Mughal emperor's demand that the amount be doubled. The world, it seems, won't let the fanci's deed be forgotten, and with each passing day, the story grows more elaborate, more mythical. In some versions, every escape of the Mughal princess. In others, he's established a pirate kingdom on Madagascar. The truth, whatever it might be, is lost beneath layers of increasingly fantastic rumors. For months after Charleston, you find yourself in a small farming community in western Massachusetts. Winter has set in, making travel difficult. You rent a room from a widow who asks few questions and appreciate the forced pause in your constant movement. It's here by the light of a whale oil lamp in your rented room that you finally read a full account of Joseph Dawson's execution. The newspaper is months old, having passed through many hands before reaching this remote settlement. Before the gallows, the account reads, one of the pirates told the eager crowds that the crew deserved death and that the inhuman treatment and merciless tortures inflicted on the poor Indians and their women still affects my soul. You close your eyes, memories flooding back. The screams you tried to ignore. The women locked in their cabin. The pirates burning and torturing Indian sailors. The blood-soaked deck of the Gang-i-Sawai. The article continues recounting how Dawson and his companions were hanged slowly, strangled on short nooses rather than granted the mercy of a broken neck. Their corpses were left to dangle in the tide and wither into ghoulish forms on the gray coast of the Thames. A warning to all who might consider the pirate's path. Is this justice? You wonder. Does their death balance the scales for what happened on the Gang-i-Sawai? And what about your own role? Smaller, perhaps. Focus on the treasure rather than the violence, but still part of the whole. The widow calls you down for supper, interrupting your dark thoughts. Her table is simple but welcoming. Fresh bread, rabbit stew, and home-brewed beer. Her 2 young children stare at you curiously throughout the meal. You're a novelty in their isolated world. A man from distant places who speaks little of his past. Will you tell us a story, sir? The younger child, a girl perhaps 6, asks as the meal concludes. Mother says you've been on ships. You hesitate, then nod. But the story you tell is not a fancy or the Gang-i-Sawai. Instead, you recall an old sailor's tale from your early days at sea, a harmless adventure involving a whale and a fishing boat. The children listen wide-eyed, and for a brief moment, you feel almost normal.